because the person that we're talking about, and for the next 6 weeks, we'll be talking about a person each week that teaches us something about this life worth living. You know, why not now? Why not do something right now? Living a life that matters. And tonight we are talking about a girl. Her name is Miriam. And you know what Miriam did? She risked bigger. And this is a story you've known, but I don't know if you have seen it from that perspective yet, because Miriam is Moses' sister. And every time we talk about Moses, we talk about the perspective of baby Moses, right? But we don't talk about his big sister and what she did. So just to give you an idea of what's happening, we're going to be in the book of Exodus. So if you want to open Exodus, remember, second book in the Bible, so you just take it from the front. And the thing about Exodus and what's happening here is, remember, the Israelites are in Egypt, and they are slaves in Egypt, and they have been growing. So in chapter 1, if you see verse 16, when you held the Hebrew, so the king of Egypt is telling the midwives, the ones that held the babies to be delivered, says to them, when you held the Hebrew women in childbearing and observed them on the delivery stool, if it's a boy, kill him. But if it's a girl, let her live. And so this is his order. He doesn't want the Jews to continue to grow because they are becoming bigger and bigger in number. And so he says, this is the way that we're going to handle it. We're going to do this. But these midwives were afraid of God, so they would not do it. And so when the king said, what's going on here? They said, you know what? They are strong women, and so before we even get there, they already gave birth to the baby, so we cannot do anything about it. The reason why they were doing it is because they were afraid of what God would do to them. And so, if you look chapter 1 still, verse 22, then Pharaoh gave his order to all his people, every Hebrew boy that is born you must throw into the Nile, but let every girl live. So this was the law. This was the order. If it's a boy, as soon as the baby was born, throw it into the river. Girls are allowed to live. So there's this couple, and they are about to have, they have already Miriam, who's the older sister, and then they have a boy already, Aaron. And then she's pregnant. And she finds out, and so she's trying to keep it very quiet. And so for 3 months, when the baby is born, they are keeping this baby very quiet and trying to keep him from making too much noise, and then they can't handle it anymore. And so we go to chapter 2, and we start looking from verses 1 through 4. So, now a man of the house of Levi married a Levite woman. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hid him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the banks of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. I'm going to read all the way to 10. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. This is one of the Hebrew babies, she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you? Yes, go, she answered, and the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you. So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, I drew him out of the water. And so, when we come to this passage, when we come to this situation, we find Miriam. And what's happening is, she was okay, she was a girl, there was no problem for her, okay? But here's the situation. This baby is going to either be found out, and they'll kill him. So, in a desperate attempt to save this baby, she decides, you know what, I'm going to put him in this little basket. I'm going to cover it so he kind of floats in the water and see what happens. So, the first thing I want you to know about Miriam, and there she is watching her baby brother. The first thing I want you to know is, whose family do you belong to? You know that, and that might be a weird question to ask you, but the question, why I'm asking this is because she knew the place that she played, the role she played in her family. And she was the big sister. And she was going to do her part to make sure that this baby was okay and was taken care of. Right? How many of you have seen Lilo and Stitch? The movie.
Wait, what?
Lilo and Stitch. You haven't seen it yet? Okay. Ohana. Do you know what that means? You don't remember?
Oh, Ohana means family.
Ohana means family. Yeah.
Together,
Yeah. Ohana means family. Nobody gets left behind or forgotten. And that's a big part of that. It's about being a family because if you remember the story, two girls, parents died, and so they are trying to stick together. And that's what this is all about. It's about family. It's about us together doing those things, you know? And so the knowledge that she understood who she belonged to, that she belonged to this family, drove her to act, to do something. And so as a big sister, she decides to hide there and to make sure that this baby is okay. I don't know if, the Bible doesn't tell us, but I don't know if mom said, hey, I need you to be there. I don't know if she did it from herself. But it doesn't matter who told her. The point is, she as a big sister is making sure that her baby brother, it's okay. She wants to make sure that whatever happens to this baby, she is close by to make sure that everything is okay. And that's what we do when we are part of family. You know, when you are part of a family, you do crazy things. Or you do amazing things because you love these people and you want to do something. That's what Diane is doing, taking care of her her in-laws. You know, it's not an easy thing, and she'll tell you that it's not, it might not be, this is why people don't do it. I always tell, what do I say? If it's hard.
If it was easy, everyone would be doing it.
If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. The fact that it's hard, that's why people are not doing it. It's a hard thing. You know, but when it's family, you go ahead and you take care of people. You do what you can for them because they are family, and you love them and you care for them. And that idea of being part of a family is what helps you get an idea of who you are. Because if you're not feeling that love and care in your own family, you're going to go outside to look for that. If I'm not getting it here, I'm going to go and look for something to give me that. And that's why people get into gangs. That's why people start having sex like crazy or doing drugs, because they are needing something else, because they are not feeling what they need. It's not fulfilling them. I remember when I went down to, my sister came to the States one of the first times before she moved here. She came just to visit. And I took a plane and I went to Birmingham, Alabama, and I was literally 23 hours in Birmingham. I got there one day at like 3 in the afternoon, spent the day with her, slept, got up the next day, spent the morning with them, and I left in the afternoon. Why are we willing to do things like that? Because I love my sister, and if I had a chance to see her, I wanted to take advantage of that. It was a crazy 24 hours just doing that, just to be with her for less than a day. But that was taking advantage of a moment that I could have with her. Because if you understand you're part of something, of a family, that leads you to act. And that's what the Bible tells us. Look, this is in Galatians 3:26. For you are all children of God through faith in Christ Jesus. You are part of the family of God. And because you are part of the family of God, you are called to different things and to better things than anybody else. People who are convinced that they belong in a family are more ready and willing to take risks for each other when they understand that they belong to something. So when I say, who do you belong to? Whose family do you belong to? Don't be like Johnny when he was little and we took him to Florida and we were getting into the line for TSA, you know, the people that check you at the airport. And we were in the line and he ran ahead of everybody and he came running to the attendant, and so the attendant tries to be very cute and he's like, so who do you belong? No, are these? So she goes, are these your people? And Johnny goes, no. So she freaked out like, what? Like, is somebody stealing this kid? And I had to be like, oh, no, he's my foster son. Here's the paperwork for him. You know, because, you know, at that time, Johnny didn't know that he belonged to our family because technically he wasn't part of our family. You know, and that's why when he was adopted, he's one of ours. if he goes to the line, he better say, yes, I belong to these people. You know? But that's what it's telling us. You know, if you understand that you're a part of the family of God, you're willing to take bigger risks for each other and for one another if we understand that. The second thing I want you to think about and ask yourself is, don't you love that picture?
I love her.
It's one of my favorite pictures. This is a girl from Afghanistan, and they took a picture like in the middle of nowhere, and it won so many awards. Just her eyes, you know, you're just drawn to them. And the reason why I picked that picture is, where's your attention? What are you focused on? Look at Exodus 2, 4, and 6. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the river bank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. This is one of the Hebrews' babies, she said. And so you know what? Miriam is standing right there, and she's keeping her eyes on that baby, right? I don't think that she's on the reeds there going, oh, this is a nice day. I wonder. I mean, thankfully she didn't have a cell phone, because she probably will be like, oh, let me check. I'm at the river. Look at my baby brother. I mean, she probably would not be paying attention to that, right? Because her attention was fully on that baby. And how many of us have seen the time where we live, the people that like fall into, things, or did you see that lady that fell into the manhole because she was texting? She's texting and she didn't realize, and she hit the barrier and flew into the thing and like broke her collarbone and everything. I mean, like, it was scary. And I've seen like tons of people with their cell phones smack into like poles or like, huh? Yeah, people getting into lakes. I mean, like, not realizing that was happening. Or even in the mall, they are just walking and then there's fountains and people just fall into the fountain because they are not paying attention. Because where's our attention? What are we paying attention to? You know, she kept her eyes on that baby. She wanted to see what was happening to that baby. She focused so much on that baby, you know? What are you paying attention to? We all are paying attention to something. We are all focusing on something. What are you focusing on? What are you obsessing over that you have gotten your eyes to that? But you know what happens sometimes when we do that? Depending on what it is, we can miss out what's happening around us sometimes because we are so focused on that. Many times when we're in the middle of pain and suffering, we are so focused on that we are missing out the good things that are happening around us. And we become blind to those things. Here's the story that this guy, had a factory, and he thought people were stealing from his factory. So he put a police officer in the entrance. He's like, you're going to check. Everybody comes in and out. You better focus on them, and you make sure that nobody's stealing anything. So the first day, here comes this guy with a wheelbarrow. You know, this was a place where they work with wood and stuff, a mill. And so he comes out with his wheelbarrow, and he's got this big old sack on top of the wheelbarrow. And the guy is like, oh, stop it. What are you taking from here? Let me see what's in the sack. So he's like, it's just sawdust. He's like, yeah, right. Open it. So opens the sack, sawdust. He's like, okay, go. So he leaves. The next day, same thing. Guy with a wheelbarrow. Big old thing in there. Okay, you're taking something. Open the sack. Opens the sack, nothing. And it keeps happening every single day for 2 weeks. And this police officer is like, okay, I know he's stealing something. I know he's stealing something. So after 2 weeks, he just finally stops him, coming out with a wheelbarrow thing. Finally goes, okay, you know what? I will not take you to jail. I will not do anything to you. I know you're stealing something. Just tell me what you're stealing. What do you guys think it is? Miss Diane knows it already. That's why she's holding it. The guy looks at him. He's like, wheelbarrows. I am stealing wheelbarrows. You know what? Because this guy is just so focused on that, on what's on top, that he's missing completely. Like, the guy is leaving with wheelbarrows, comes back and doesn't have one, and every day is taking up with one, and he's so oblivious to what's happening because he's so focused on the thing on the top instead of looking what's on the bottom, right? And so what is our attention on? She kept her eyes on her little brother, making sure that he was okay, Look at what the Bible tells us. Where our attention needs to be. This is Hebrews 12:1-2. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding his shame. Now he is seated in the place of honor beside God's throne. And what the writer of Hebrews is telling us is that we need to keep your attention on Jesus. You need to keep your eyes on him. He is the one that you need to keep your attention on, because people in God's family pay attention to Jesus. And when you are paying attention to him, you understand how to take risks and which one you should and which one you shouldn't take. So, third question I want you to ask yourself, and that is, what choice will you make? Look at the verses again. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you? Now, imagine this, okay? Miriam has been following in the reeds this baby. She sees, she's keeping her eyes on this baby, making sure that no crocodile is coming and chomping it up, making sure no water is leaking in there. Now she sees this princess of Egypt grabbing this baby. She opens it and she sees that it's a baby. And she's just sitting there, and here comes the big choice she needs to make. Do I speak up? Or do I just hide here? I can only imagine her heart going like crazy, beating, right? Like crazy. Like, what should I do? I'm here to watch my baby brother, but now this lady is, and she's the daughter of Pharaoh, and I'm pretty sure she could tell that that's who she was, because she probably was dressed very nice and she had all these people. So she probably was going through her mind and going, okay, something is going to happen. They either are going to be like, throw him into the river, or they are probably going to like put me in jail. I don't know. So she's deciding this, and she's thinking there, should I speak up or should I not speak up? What choice will you make? What should she do? What should she do at that moment? And so she stands up and speaks up, and she goes, shall I go and get you one of the Hebrew women to take care of this baby? Right? Which is very clever, right? Because, number one, she knows that this is a baby who needs food. Okay? This lady is not going to be able to feed this baby. There's no formula. There's nothing at this time. So, very cleverly, she's like, you need somebody to help you take care of this baby. Now, it's a custom at this time when they would usually have, somebody nurse the baby and then bring it back to them. So she's like, go ahead. And when she brings mom, the mom of the baby, and she says, take care of this baby until he stops nursing. Once he's done, bring him to me. Now, we know that God orchestrated all of this, right? God worked it out in this amazing way so that Moses could actually grow up with his family. He learned who he is, what family he belongs to during that time. But then he gets to go and live like a prince of Egypt with all the things that he learns, So what helps you to make the best choice? Tell me, what do you think that when you are faced with a choice, what are some of the things that help you make the best choice? What things could help you for that?
Ideas from people.
Ideas from people? Maybe the advice of somebody, right? Now, could it be just anybody who gives you advice? Probably not. What kind of people do we want to give us advice? Parents?
People that care about you.
People that care about you, right? Because if you know that somebody loves you and cares about you, then you can trust them because you know that they care about you. You're not going to just go to the first guy that is walking on the street and say, hey, what should I do? Where should I go for school? But if you know somebody loves you and cares about you, then you care about what they say. What else? What are other ways that we can do that? Get advice when you're faced with a choice.
Listening to God.
Listening to God, that's an option. The Bible talks about this thing that we've talked in the past about, but it's called wisdom. You know what wisdom is? Wisdom is the ability to see life from God's point of view. Like, how does God would want me to do this? That's what wisdom is. And the Bible calls us that we need to want wisdom and desire wisdom. And it's one of the things that we should want to become more and more wise. When you think of somebody wise, what do you think?
Older person.
Older person, white
Not
deer.
Trump.
Huh?
Not.
Thank you.
But
Dumbledore, there you go. Right? Somebody who's wise, you're picturing somebody who's older, somebody who has had some life experience. Those are the things that you're looking for in somebody that is going to be wise, at least in the way that we see it. So how do you get wisdom when you need to make a choice? There's at least three things that we can do. The Bible. The Bible is full of advice for us to choices that we need to make or how we need to make those choices. The other thing, number one, Bible. Second thing, experience. You know? How do babies learn to not do things? Sometimes they have to do it and then they are like, okay, this hurts. I'm not going to do that again. Experience is a good teacher. Sometimes you need to mess up. And that's the hardest things for us as parents, is when you have to learn by messing up and hurting. Because if not, you guys don't know anything. I know better than you guys. It's like, okay, go for it. Make your choice. Make your decision. And it's hard, but sometimes experience is and that's the hard thing, because sometimes you guys don't want to listen to the experience that we've had, because you think that we don't know anything, or that we are just here to ruin your fun. So that's why we are saying it, right? And then the other thing is that you can do is ask God for wisdom. You know that the Bible tells us that. Look at James 1:5. If you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and He will give it to you. He will not rebuke you for asking. When you need to make a choice, you need to pray to God. You need to ask God for wisdom what to do. When you're in the middle of that, when you need to make that choice, you have your Bible, you have experience. If you don't see it in the Bible, or you don't know where to get it, if you had never experienced that, then ask God for wisdom to give it to you at that moment when you need to make that choice. I believe that God gave Miriam the courage and the wisdom to take that risk of standing up and speaking up at that moment. You know what I told you about Valerie's finger? I still don't know why I did it. Like I until now, I wonder why I did that. Her finger was like that, and the first thing that came to my mind is, grab it and pull it back in place. I don't know why. It was literally like one of those things. I just went and put it back in there. I had nightmares for like 2 weeks where I would see that finger sticking out like that. Now, I would like to think that is the fact that I had taken first aid, because I had worked the summer at a camp, so I had to take first aid, and I had actually heard about broken stuff and what you needed to do. So that was my experience, helping me to know what to do at that moment. Still needed to get a cast and everything, but they said that I put it back in place, and I literally, and I'm telling you, I still don't know why I took that risk of just pushing it back into place.
Did it hurt?
Huh?
Was she screaming, or was it just so fast?
I just said, just watch away right now, and she just looked to the side, and I just went and just push it back in there. Put it back into place. And then we called her dad, and they came and took her to the hospital. Yeah. So, you know what? So, 3 things. Number 1, what was it? First question, whose family do you belong to? Number 2, where's your attention? Number 3, what choice will you make? And so, every time that we speak, we come to this point. So what? What does it mean that all this has happened? Here's the interesting thing I want you to look at. I have Moses there. Because the interesting thing about that is that we would not have Moses if we didn't have Miriam. If Miriam didn't stand up and spoke to the princes, who knows what would have happened, right? Maybe he went and lived with Pharaoh and never knew that he was a Jew. Never knew that he was an Israelite, so he lived his life and never thought about it. Maybe something else happened. Who knows what would have happened? But because of the risk she took on speaking up, Moses was saved. He came to live with the family. He knew who he was. And later on, we see these three things again in Moses. So I want you to go with me to Exodus 2:11 through 15. And look what happens, okay? One day after Moses had grown up, he went out to where his own people were and watched them at their hard labor. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people. Glancing this way and that and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. The next day he went out and saw two Hebrews fighting. He asked the one in the wrong, "Why are you hitting your fellow Hebrew?" The man said, "Who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me as you killed the Egyptian?" Then Moses was afraid and thought, what I did must have become known. When Pharaoh heard of this, he tried to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in Midian, where he sat down by a well. So look at Moses' life. Look at the three things that we talked about. Look at what happened. Okay, number one, in a very bizarre kind of way, Moses knew who his family was. If you see in verse 11, it says that he knew that it was one of his people that this Egyptian was beating down. And because of that, it calls him to act, because he understood that's my people. So Moses acts because he knew what family he belonged to. He knew that he belonged to the Hebrews, to the Israelites. Number two, Moses was paying attention. He saw what was happening. He was being mistreated by this Egyptian. He was beating this guy up. So he decided to do something about it. His attention was on what was happening. Now, I don't condemn killing somebody, but this is what he chose to do, right? Which is the next thing. He made a choice. His choice was to kill this man, to defend his people. Now, we know that this again is part of God's plan for Moses, because he does that, he escapes to the desert, to Midian, and that's when he becomes a shepherd, and that's when he's in the middle of the desert, when the burning bush appears and all of that. So we know God worked these things for his life. But because he understood those things, he was able to act. He was able to take a risk because he understood who he belonged to. He was paying attention to what's going around him. And so he made a choice. Now, there are times when life can be hard and you might not know what to do. So, watch this story of a girl who decided to take a risk.
Tonight, a would-be thief is behind bars, but police didn't catch him.
And neither did Ball Security. They both had help from a 16-year-old girl. Eyewitness News 5's Wendell Edwards was live, and Wendell, you talked to this crime-fighting cheerleader.
All I did, this all happened last night here at Penn Square Mall, and it was nothing short of amazing. In a moment, a cheerleader from Moore High School knew exactly what it took to catch a thief.
Take a good long look. 16-year-old Keely Oliver is one talented cheerleader.
If I would have thought about it, I probably wouldn't have done it.
But Sunday night, she traded tumbling for tackling, bringing down a thief at Penn Square Mall.
I just wasn't going to, let him run right past me.
The rising high school junior was at the mall on her cell phone with her mom when suddenly a man started running her way.
I was like, hang on, Mom, and, put the phone down. And he got close to me, and I just got in his way and just, grabbed him, and then he kept trying to run, so I just slammed him on the ground.
You slammed him to the ground, giving mall security the chance to catch up.
Actually, I grabbed him and then put him on his stomach. and I was still holding on to him. I don't even know.
Didn't even know what she had done. We wanted to know, what was she thinking?
I didn't think. I was shaking. I was like nervous because I didn't know why I did that.
She got a scratch on her arm and bruised her left knee. And to top it all off, she did it all in a dress.
Yeah.
Keeling told all her friends, even posted her story on Facebook. But to her, she says, it's really no big deal.
First, I thought I was just going to stop him, but he kept running. So I was just like, okay, well, I guess you're going to the ground.
The cheerleader, who suddenly became the hero.
Now, Keely tells me that she doesn't consider herself a hero. She just did what she thought anybody would do. She just didn't want that crook to get away. Reporting live tonight from Northwest Oklahoma City, 111's Eyewitness News 5.
She got him. Well, we called Penn Square Mall. They had no comment. Police did confirm a shoplifter was arrested around the same time yesterday, but a name was not released.
Crazy story, right? Like this girl in a dress decides to tackle a thief. She saw running out of the mall, you know, and that's just so weird that she would choose to do that, right? Was that a wise choice, you think?
No.
No, a mom is saying
so.
no. She's like, nope. You know, was the risk worth the cause of what could have happened? No? But what do you think she did it? What did she say from what you heard?
She didn't know why. Just seemed
She
like
didn't
a
even
natural
know,
thing.
right?
Just natural.
Let's look into that a little bit. What do you think that she had in her mind why she needed to do that?
It's wrong.
It was wrong. She saw something happening that she knew was wrong, and she needed to do something about it. She said, I didn't even think. All of a sudden, I just did it. Right? And many times when you're making a choice and you're taking a risk, sometimes it's like that. You don't have the time, the luxury of time to think about something. You just do it because it just needs to be done, or because you needed to do it in order to save somebody or to fix something or to do something. You just do it. So you might not even think about it, but you know what? All these things are preparing you to make those risks, to take a risk. As we are saying, what I want you to think about is, what risks should I be willing to make? And that's the question for you that I want you to leave you with is, what risks are you willing to take for Jesus? What are the ones that you should actually be taking? Is it telling somebody about Jesus? Is it speaking up when a wrong is being done to somebody that you know should not be done? How many times are you going to be like Miriam, just hiding there and trying to decide, should I say something or should I just remain quiet? Should I just sit back and not say anything? Or should I risk because I know that it's worth taking that risk? Because I understand who I belong to. Because I understand that my eyes are on Him. And if I make this risk, if I make this choice, if I take this risk, I am depending on Him to help me make the best choice. And then I just act.